Welcome to ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast, aka CTP, in association with thelibertybeacon.com. And I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard, and that's Lenard. CTP is your no muss, no fuss, just me, you, and occasional guest type podcast. I really appreciate you tuning in. As Graham Norton would say, let's get on with the show.
Joining me today is Bullseye the Clown. Now, I'm not normally in the habit of telling you to tune out of my normally audio-only show, but today is very good reason that you should head over to @JLeonardDetroit on BitChute, Brighteon, Rumble, or YouTube to see the behind-the-scenes sneak peek video version of the show, because Bullseye is here in full regalia. And why do I have Bullseye the Clown on the show? Well, it's about humor and health, because even in my Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You book, obviously very deep, heavy topic. There's a whole lot more going on in there, too. There is a comic relief chapter about this very point. No matter how serious things get, we need to keep a sense of humor because it's good for our health. And I normally also don't do this, but rather than read a bio, let me just turn it over to you. Tell us a little about yourself, how you became Bullseye the Clown.
Well, this is a long story. No, so my name is Bullseye the Clown. I actually became a clown later in life. I mean, if you had told me that 10 years ago that when I was in my 50s, I would become a clown, I would have told you were crazy. But
you would have said, stop clowning around, right?
Exactly. But no, actually how I got started, my father passed away in 2018. And one of the things I always remembered, I had seen a movie years ago called Patch Adams. And while I was watching that movie, I found out that Patch Adams is actually like a real person, not just a movie that they made. And so I went to his website and I found, he does like these clown tours all over the world. And I guess, put that in the back of my mind. Well, when my dad passed away, he left me just like a little bit of money, and I didn't want to waste it on like paying for a bill. So I remember that Patch Adams was doing these trips. And so I got on his website and I looked, and he was doing a trip to Russia. That was in 2018. It was a 2-week trip. It was a clown trip. I was a stand-up comedian at the time. I really had no idea what a clown trip was or how to really be a clown. But on a whim, I thought, you know what? I'm just going to throw caution to the wind. I signed up for the clown trip, and I went on this clown trip with Patch Adams. And honestly, I really never expected to clown once I got back. I thought this is going to be a one and done kind of thing. I don't know.
Something that could help your stand-up career.
Well,
right?
Yeah. Give me some stories to talk about and things like that. So that was kind of the idea. But then when I started going on the trip and I started seeing like the impact that clowning had, not only on myself, but on the people that we were clowning with, I thought, there's something to this humor and healing kind of thing. And so once I got back from the trip, I decided, I need to figure out a way to kind of continue doing clowning and doing clown tours. And so, I've done about 4 or 5 trips now with Patch Adams. And I've actually done one of my own. I just completed one of my own actually in Guatemala. So we just got back from there a few weeks ago. So that's kind of how the whole thing started, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I have in the notes here, since you mentioned Patch tours, you started Clowns on a Mission, kind of.
Yes. Yeah. What Clowns on a Mission is a little different than what Patch does. Patch goes and we do the tours with Patch, and, we take love and compassion, and, we clown around, we have fun. And then we leave. We don't really leave anything behind. And I thought, how wonderful would it be if, we left something behind, depending on what it was, whether like at the orphanages, if you left, food or clothes or socks or whatever. So when I started Clowns on a Mission, we decided, originally we were going to go to Guatemala, and we were going to do a backpack program. A lot of the children in Guatemala can't afford to go to school if their parents can't afford their school supplies. So we decided we were going to take 200 backpacks into Guatemala and hand those out to the poor children so that the poor children could get into school. Well, what happened once we got there is we realized that there was also a need for a lot of these families to have food. So while we were there, we actually bought 200 pounds of rice and 200 pounds of corn. We bought juice boxes for the children, and we also bought cookies. And then so everywhere we went, we passed out the juice boxes, cookies, the rice, and the corn everywhere we went, so that not only were we clowning around and having fun with them, that at the end of our visit, we left them something that they actually could use while we were gone.
Yeah, that's good. Cookies, of course, won't last. But
no, they didn't last past our visit, but that's okay.
Right. But rice is one of those things. Like, this will be an odd segue or mention, but in the most recent Godzilla movie, I mean, they were talking about in World War II Tokyo, or Hiroshima after the blast, right? The need for rice, because that was something that then could and would last for a while, as opposed to so many other things that would be a short-lived item. So you were definitely thinking ahead there. Or were you thinking ahead, or did you just happenstance on that?
Well, actually, I wasn't even planning to get food until we got there. And then one of the ladies who was hosting us, she said, the folks really do need food. And so it was and so we just kind of started looking at, but what amazes me is how poor they are and how cheap their food and stuff really is there, and yet they can't afford it. I mean, I bought 200 pounds of corn for $50.
Wow.
I mean, I was like, well, how much is, because I was thinking, we raised just a certain amount of money for the backpacks and everything and for our trip. And so I was like, well, I don't know how much is this corn going to cost me? When she said it was $50, I was like, well,
yeah.
So,
given inflation in our country right now, one corn on the cob at a restaurant will cost you $50 pretty soon. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
a serious and joking point at the same time. Yeah.
So then we kind of decided, what can, as you said, what can last? And then with rice, they can make quite a few meals out of the rice. And we actually had a little bit of rice left over. One of the last places we visited was a nursing home. And this was a place where families just kind of took their old parent and they just dropped them off, and then they ended up taking their homes and their money. And so the nursing home doesn't charge like the residents to live there, but then they don't really fund it either. They give like some workers to work there, but if they want food, they have to get food by donation only. So when we went to visit them, we took every one of the residents a meal. And since we had a little bit of rice and corn left over from the rice and corn that we bought, then the week after we had already left, some of the locals also went in there using the same food and made them another meal again. So even though we're gone, we're still being able to continue the mission there, even though we're not there.
That's great. That's great. I have in my notes, because I don't script things, but I do notes. One thing I wrote down, this will be a bit of a setup to get to your reaction. It won't really be a question, but I want your reaction.
Okay.
We're recording in March. I'm not exactly sure when this show will drop. It may not drop till like June or July.
Holy moly.
Yeah. So nothing too time, dependent here. But I was listening to the Snark Factor the other day with Fingers Malloy and Sarah Smith, another show. They're also on a Wham Radio local station. And they were talking about a study about things not to say to a woman. I'll segue this to why I'm asking you in a second. And one of the items was never tell a woman to smile more, right? That's a big no-no. But my immediate thought was, well, we really need to tell everybody to smile more. And what I'm getting at is that there was a study on Newsmax, Emma Reckenberg, I think, mentioned it, about even forcing a smile can have benefits. And my thoughts, and what I want to get your reaction to, was it's not the forced smile that's of a benefit. It's that you likely get smiles back in return that are genuine, that then help them and help you. Your thoughts?
Actually, you're exactly 100% correct in that. That's kind of what happened when I went to Russia. So when I went to Russia on this very first patch trip, I was dealing with the death of my father. I had spent years being bullied as a kid and even into adulthood. And so I had like a lot of, junk that I was taking with me. And so Patch had one rule. He had two rules. It was be happy, 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 happy everywhere you go. And there's no whining. So, and,
except the crushed grape kind, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yes. And so, we were forced basically everywhere we went to be happy. Well, some of us were dealing with other personal things. And so it was, you can't be happy and sad at the same time. So what I found was everywhere we went, we were happy, jolly, happy, jolly, happy, jolly. And then when I came home, I realized that all of the baggage that I took to Russia with me was no longer there. You saw how just the interactions with people changed them. One instance in particular that would happen on the very first day, we were traveling to an orphanage, and there were 35 clowns in a bus traveling through Russia.
Oh, not a VW.
And so we stopped at a stoplight, and I peeked out the window. There was a bus station or a bus station right outside the window. And so the light turned red. And so I just started pecking on the window. I saw a little lady sitting out there holding a bag of groceries, and there was other people there, but nobody was really paying any attention to this lady. And so I just started pecking on the window, and I waved at her, and she looked at me, and she's like, I don't know what she thought, but she kind of like waved. And so I waved a little faster, and then she waved a little faster. And then all the clowns on the bus saw what I was doing, and they turned and they all started waving at the woman. Well, then the light changed and the bus started to pull away. And as we pulled away, the old woman sat down on the park bench and she cried. Now, why she cried, I don't know. Maybe she was just glad we didn't kidnap her. Or maybe, we for that moment in time, for that 30 seconds that we were sitting there, somebody saw her that day. Maybe nobody notices her, maybe nobody sees her, but just in that moment, and I saw the power that clowning had on people. And just like, as you mentioned, the smiles, and how the smiles are contagious. And then how, as we pulled away, then the smiles are leaving. And then of course she's left with whatever thoughts she has. Yeah. And so it was just everywhere we went, things started happening like that. And we saw how, and of course I couldn't speak Russian. So I'm an American. So I could not speak any Russian at all. I had no idea what any of these people were saying to me. And so we didn't have language. So most of the clowns could not speak Russian. So we didn't really have the language that we could communicate. So it really had to be all through smiles and hugs and love and, trying to make as much humor as we could with whatever we could find that we had there.
Yeah,
or
pantomiming and like carrot top prop type things. And yeah,
and just picking up like a banana and going hello,
yeah,
things like that.
Right. Hello, they would understand, right? Yeah. And exactly. Those could have been tears of depression because she was depressed, or again, someone showed attention. They could have been tears of joy, and hopefully they were.
Yeah, and like I said, and so. It was those moments that whenever I got back home, I started thinking about those. And I'm like, okay, I need to figure out how I can continue doing that more. So then that's why after that, I signed up to go on a trip to Morocco and one to Mexico and one to Costa Rica. And then we just went to Guatemala. So, and of course now I also clown here in the United States. I also clown like in a lot of nursing homes. So I go into a lot of nursing homes and I do clowning there because I like to find people who are kind of, I don't know, isolated, I guess. I feel like, and so that's kind of my thing is I try to find people who feel like they're locked away and I try to bring as much joy to them as I can.
Yeah. Clowns and service dogs are good. I did. I'm not trying to directly equate you to a dog, but I think you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, most clowns are a little less fuzzy, but that's, yeah, I get it. Yeah.
And you mentioned bullying. I have that in my notes to quote unquote in your profile, a bullying expert. So I think we all understand where you would go, but go ahead and expound upon that.
Well, like I said, I actually wrote a book a couple years ago called Bullseye On Bullying. And it's kind of like a little handbook really for like people who are bullied to carry with them, and ideally, believe it or not, when I started to write the book, I wasn't planning to write it really for kids, even though I'm a clown. But my whole purpose really was, I saw like a lot of people who are bullied as kids who, when they became adults, they're still carrying all of that stuff with them, all of the hurt and the anxiety and all that kind of stuff. And so I thought, what makes some people who are bullied, carry all that with them and then not do the work that they wanted to do, like I really thought that by this point in my life, I would be like this really famous actor, like Robin Williams or something. And as you can see, I'm Bullseye the Clown. So it didn't quite work out as I had hoped. But then you have other people who are bullied, like say Lady Gaga, Susan Boyle, people who've gone on to do like, these amazing things. So originally when I started to write the book, that was kind of my idea is, why do some people live out, kind of become successful in spite of the fact that they were bullied? And then some people kind of don't amount to what they had hoped for. And then just as I was writing the book, of course, then things just kind of started to morph. And I had some kids were reading what I was writing and they were getting a lot out of it too. So then it just kind of was like, okay, well, apparently this is a book that, all people can really read and understand and kind of get to the crux of. So my whole point wasn't to necessarily eradicate bullying, but my whole point was for a person who is bullied, how do they react to them and how do they get away from them and how do they move on from that? So that was kind of the whole point.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to eradicate it, and this may sound controversial and upsetting to some. I don't think we want to entirely. It's a part of life, and we just need to make people understand the bullying isn't about you. It's about their lack of self-esteem and self-worth. And sometimes people may take that bullying and it's like, they become something because of it. It's, I'm going to show you, I'm going to amount to something, whereas I know you won't. So we need to understand not to take that bullying as somehow we're inadequate in whatever way.
That's exactly right. And, a lot of times what I found from just, believe it or not, as I was writing the book, a person who bullied me actually was going through a 12-step program and actually wrote me a letter. And actually the letter is in the book. And so I just kind of continued to talk to him. And, you do find out that, it had really nothing to do with me. The one of the kids bullying me, he was a mixed race. And so he was in with a group of friends. And in order for him to fit in with this group of friends, he bullied me so that they wouldn't bully him. So you just never know what kind of dynamics is working in the head of the bully as well. And it could be that the bully is, a battered child at home. And so they're lashing out when they get to school because they have an outlet there. And so that's part of it, is that a lot of times the bullies don't have an outlet. They're just trying to get their emotions out. And unfortunately, it just happens to be on someone who is, unsuspecting and innocent, at the time, So you're absolutely right. So it really, and that's what I say in the book too, bullying isn't about you who is being bullied. It's really more about the bully and what's going on in their life.
Exactly. To them, in a way, it's just a coping measure or a steam let-off measure. And in many respects, again, controversial, we'd rather somebody verbally abuse somebody than it go to a physical abusiveness, which of course, in some cases it is with bullies, fighting and physical harassment. So there's, it's all gray area. It's, it's not all the same we have to look at them different and indeed understand not just maybe why we're a target, but again, more that we might just be random. It's really indeed more about them. But I also see down here a Bachelor of Arts in Comprehensive Theater and Communications from Ashland University. Well, my first thing is I didn't look it up. Where is Ashland? When did you go? Was this later in life when you decided to become a clown, or did that start your stand-up, or?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Ed Bondarenka, and I host Your American Heritage on Saturdays at 2 in the afternoon on this station. Your American Heritage is a show about the struggle we find ourselves in and how to react to it in the light of our biblical and American heritage. Listen to it while you're working around the house, the garage, cleaning the guns, walking the dog, driving, or just lazing around. Join me at 2 o'clock Saturdays here on Wham Radio, 1600 AM, 92.7 FM.
God bless America.
No, actually, I went right after high school. So I went right from high school right into college. Ashland University was in Ohio, Ashland, Ohio.
Oh,
it's
being in Michigan, I should know that, but I didn't.
Yeah, it started off as Ashland College. So while I was actually going, it switched from Ashland College to Ashland University. And the only thing that I really noticed that changed was the cost.
Which was not at all funny.
Right, exactly. And of course, I was a theater major. And I thought, I have no idea what I'm ever going to do with this degree. As you can see,
a lot better than a gender study.
That's true. Or a botanist or something like that, you know. That's kind of how it all started. And I picked Ashland out of I had a list of colleges that I wanted to go to, but a lot of the colleges, they would not allow like theater majors to be in a play until they were a junior. And so I thought, well, that's kind of pointless. How are you going to learn to act if you don't act until you're 2 years into your program? So I picked Ashland actually because they allowed you to be in plays right from the beginning. So that was and there was a couple famous people that, like Amy Stock, who was in the Bill and Ted movies, and she was on the TV show Dallas, and Dwyer Brown, who was in Field of Dreams. So there were a few people who I knew who had gone on to do other things. So that's kind of why I picked it. And
do you do you have connectivity to those people at all yet still, or have they long forgotten about you?
Oh, yeah. Well, long forgotten about me. They don't even know about me. So these were people who had gone there and who had graduated way before I even went there.
Oh, you weren't there at the same time.
No. Yeah, so I had known about these, and so that's kind of what kind of drew me in. I was like, well, at least they have a few success stories, so I'll see what happens with me. And then I found out nothing.
Yeah. I dabbled in everything through high school. I was one of those. I was in theater production for a semester because I knew people who were going to go into arts and that sort of thing. They were my friends, so I was involved in play production in high school, and that was fun. That was not something I was interested in long term, but there's often this argument about schools. Now, I'm definitely one that says we need to get back to the core, right? I say these days it's all about the new art, radicalism, raunch, and racism. And we need to get back to arithmetic, writing, and history and the core arts. But obviously, too, not everybody is that intellectual hemisphere thinker. There are people who are more artistic. So obviously there is still a need and a place for arts, but I think the emphasis now, since we've gotten away from it, needs to get back to those core teachings. Would you agree with that?
I would. And I mean, I really think that theater is a good outlet for a lot of people, which it was for me. Unfortunately, like even at my high school, I found out like years later that they've dropped the drama program, so they no longer have the drama program based on budgets or whatever. Because football and basketball are more profitable than theater. So of course, the football team and the baseball team and the basketball team, they all get the money. And yeah, I mean, I was never one of those kids that I liked math was okay. Arithmetic was fine. Writing was fine. Spelling, I love spelling in English. History, I could have given a hoot about. My whole thing is if I want to know what happened back then, I'll watch a movie about it, and maybe I'll be in a movie about it, who knows? But yeah, it was like even whenever I saw the movie The Titanic, I had no idea how the movie was going to end. So until it happened, I'm like, oh, that's what happened.
That's funny. That's funny. That's a good one. I like that. That's good.
That's probably the only one in the theater who had no idea where this was going. But I'm like,
okay. I don't do a long show. Seeing as I'm still in my first season, this might actually drop in my second season by the time it does. So I'm still building an audience, so I don't want to go too long. People see a new show, and if it's for 3 hours, no, I don't think so. But, shorter shows, they might tune in to give
Absolutely.
us a try, right? So, and hopefully now knowing you're here, they'll really want to tune in.
They'll be like, why is he interviewing a clown? What the heck?
Right. Hey, this is a Christian show, and I've interviewed an atheist twice. So, I'll talk to, they all relate in some way. Again, with this show, humor and health is an important thing. There's no faith, no religion, none of that involved, but a very important topic. So is there anything you want to share wrapping things up?
Well, no, but I did want to ask you a question. So you mentioned that you had a passage about Patch Adams in your book. Have you ever met Patch Adams, or what made you put him in your book?
No, it's a comic relief chapter, just making that point about the need to keep a sense of humor and that humor and health connection. It was just easy to mention Patch because indeed most people know at least his name because of the Robin Williams movie, like you even previously mentioned, because a lot of people know the movie.
So if you want me to have some like little ending wisdom, and I always say the best thing you can do for yourself is to do good things for other people, because in doing things for other people,
and
that indeed helps.
There's our Christian tie-in, right? Do
right.
unto others as you like have done unto you, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I live by. I just have to find this scripture when it actually was. It was very much the way I feel, and I think it's Proverbs 11:25 that says, "A generous person will prosper, and whoever refreshes others is refreshed," or something to that point. And that's kind of the way it is. I mean, I really was not looking for the clowning tours to help me in any way. I was just there to have fun with other people. And then in turn, it just really did wonders for myself. So, I mean, if you're going through a really bad day and you want to do something that's going to uplift yourself, go do something nice for somebody else. I mean, it can be just as simple as make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and go down to the street corner and hand it to a homeless person. Just do some, and their reaction has nothing to do with the deed that you did. Don't expect anything in return. They may not want to hug you. They may not even take the sandwich. That's not the point. The point is that you did it and how it made you feel when you gave it to someone. So
right. I hear you. That's great. That's wonderful. Now, if people want to reach out to you, do you have a website? Where do people find you?
I do. I have a bullseyetheclown.com and also clownsonamission.com. So if you want to learn about the mission that we do, I think our next mission, we're planning hopefully to go to Italy. That's our goal, because two of our clowns that were on our last trip were from Italy and they wanted to host a trip. So that's hopefully where we're going for the next trip.
Ooh,
yeah,
that'll be nice. I hope definitely schedule some time for sightseeing. I harken back to, you mentioned Morocco. Did you get to see the nice parts at least too while you were there?
We did. We spent the first. We did. It was like 8 days. So we spent 4 days in Casablanca, and then we spent 4 days in Marrakesh. And then of course we had the way it was set up to where we had usually 2 big clowning things per day, but usually the evenings are opened up for us to kind of do other things. So, like when we were in Casablanca, we went to like Rick's Cafe, which was the cafe that was in the movie Casablanca. And then Marrakesh, we got to do a few sightseeing things. But like I said, a lot of times we were spent, in orphanages or prisons or wherever else the patch had us going. Mexico, we went to a few prisons, and that was an interesting.
I want, but let's not end then yet. Let's expound because you mentioned prison, and immediately in my mind, I mean, like there are a lot of musical artists too that will go, and I bet your experience was probably actually pretty good there, right?
It was actually, the prison that we went to, it was a prison for women. And then women, if they had children, they were allowed to have their children there up until they were 6. And then at 6, the children either had to go live with family, or if they had no family, then they were put into like the orphanages. And so we happened to go on like visitation day where like family members were coming in. And so we kind of entertained like the children. And then when the family member was with the children, then we entertained their family. And then they pulled me and a few other clowns aside. They said, "We want you to go into this other yard." I'm not sure why they picked me to necessarily go into the other yard.
You looked like you were okay for the high security yard, huh?
There must have been. So then they moved us over to this other little yard where we kind of were hanging out. And the prisoners who weren't allowed to come out because they had misbehaved that day or whatever, or that week, they were behind these concrete walls, and the walls had like little holes about that big in them, and so they could kind of peek out these little holes.
For those on audio, it's about the size of a softball.
Yeah. Enough for them to reach their arm out, so they could reach. And there were a bunch of the holes all over the wall. I mean, so it was just like lines and lines of these little holes. So I guess it was ventilation. And then also they could hang laundry out on the thing. And somebody said, well, the ladies up there, they want you to send them a balloon up there. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get a balloon through that hole, because I'm, but I carry these little things with me. I know your people at home can't see them if they were listening, but I had these little rubber chickens.
Oh,
and these little chickens are slingshots. And so what I would do is I would take these little slingshots and I would shoot these chickens up into the little holes.
I'm surprised they let you do that, because
they didn't see me do it.
Yeah, because then they could use them as a weapon, or not a very effective one, but
I didn't think of that at the time. But yes, once I left and I told people about this experience, they said they could have tied these things together and choked somebody. I said, well,
yeah, or choking hazard for a child.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we learn it as we go, right?
That's right. Would I do it again? Probably.
You probably shouldn't, but I could see I could see the guards being pissed off at trying to round them all up afterwards.
Like, where the hell these chickens come from?
All right. Well, thank you, Bullseye the Clown. Do you want to share your real name, or do you strictly stay in character? And
no, my real name is Brian. I go by that's my real name. But yeah, Bullseye the Clown. And a lot of people ask, why did you choose that name? And actually it came from bullying. I used to say, like, when people would call me names, it was like they were shooting arrows at me, and every once in a while what they would say would hit the bullseye. And so that just kind of resonated with me. And so that's why I came up with the name Bullseye the Clown.
And that reminds me, I was actually at a local independent franchised owned Big Boy restaurant that's in Wyandotte, where I live. And I was talking to them about something came up, they said, so I stopped over and told a joke. And that led to me talking about the podcast and that I was going to have you on. And they mentioned, yeah, they love that name. So people who never heard of you, I mentioned you, and they said, oh, I love that name. So hopefully they'll tune in when the show drops. And hey, big boy customers, I didn't get their name, so I can't give them an actual shout out, but here's your shout out. All right. Thank you, Brian, Bullseye the Clown, for stopping by. Take care and have a great day.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having tuned in for ChristiTutionalist Politics show. If you haven't already, please check out my primary internationally available book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you. Available anywhere books are sold. If you have locally run bookstores still near you, they can order it for you, or autographed copies are available online direct from me via terrorstrikes.info/shop. Be sure to check out more about today's discussion at thelibertybeacon.com, where my articles drop every Saturday. And let me remind, over time, the fancy high production items will come. But for now, for starters, it's just you as a very appreciated listener by me. All substance, no fluff, no fancy high production intro or inserts, at least yet, just straight to key discussion points. A show that looks at a variety of topics, mostly politics, through a Christian U.S. constitutionalist lens. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Take care. God bless. Like and subscribe to ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast and share episodes. We need your help to grow the show. Just wanted to give a brief shout out and thank you to all the folks on iHeartRadio and Player FM for being 2 in the top 3 platforms that my show, ChristiTutionalist Politics, is most often listened to. So thank you all. Take care. God bless.
It is a myth that terrorism stopped during COVID. Unfortunately, mainstream media opted to prioritize pandemic hysteria over promoting all news. Terrorism continues. Simply hoping that it doesn't affect you is not a strategy. The new book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you, featured on The Author Show, is now available in paperback from bookstores, online, or as an ebook exclusively through Amazon Kindle. Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you by Joseph M. Leonard. Order today.